Feeling good, feeling great, feeling good. How are you? One time for the fan. You already know what it is, and you already know what it do. Chase, glad to have you here. No Bodie 3000 tonight, but that's okay. We'll get to that shortly. Find out what time he gets off work. He's picking up these hours. He's trying to go to Rolling Loud this year. So let's all keep Bodie in our prayers. Chase 5,000. We'll give you that one for tonight. Chase 5,000. How's everything going over there around your way? We also have a special guest shortly, Falcon fans, so stay tuned. Chase, but how's everything going around your way, sir?
What's good, bro? Can't complain, man. Been a busy week of podcasting. Third show this week, so we putting in work. Appreciate the subscribes, man.
Definitely a busy week of podcasting. We had a fantastic podcast on Sunday, and then we followed that up with a pop-up show on Monday, which we had Alberto from 95 North Falcons Talk Show. We had Big Low Country Sports in the building talking Falcons football with us. And we had a great time. Me, you, Bodie, man. It was just really, truly jam-packed week, especially what the Falcons are doing right now. We're going to get to that. We also have a special guest tonight. We have Scott Carasik in the building. For Falcon fans that's been on Twitter or in the Falcon groups. Yeah. Big time Atlanta Falcons fan. So glad to have him here, take some time out of his day to come talk Falcons football with us. Scott Carasik is a well-known, respected, diehard Atlanta Falcon fan. So he's here to break down a lot of what you guys are seeing right now go on with the Falcons. He posts a lot on Twitter and social media, and I've seen a lot of people repost and retweet, screenshot, and share a lot of what Scott says. I got you, Scott. I sent it right over to you. We'll get you in here shortly. We're going to do Break the Ice. The chat is going crazy already. A lot more people probably will still be joining in. Don't forget, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can listen to us Anchor, Stitcher, Radio Podcast. So there's a lot of links. You can catch us. Facebook. Chase, anything else? YouTube. We just hit 350 subscribers. Shout out to everybody. Big 350 in the building. 350 subs. So shout out to the one-timers. Hashtag one-timers. Shout out to the hashtag fan club. Just want to say a big thank you to everybody. We really want to get to 1,000 subscribers. We saw some people in the past couple weeks ask about donating to us, and we would really just like to get to 1,000 subscribers soon. So that would be our biggest thing this year. But 350 is good. We tried to get to 350 before rookie mini camp, and we hit it. That was the goal. So let's try to go for 400 before. Let's go week one. Let's go 400 before week one. So that's good. 50 more subscribers before week one. We're taking it slow. We're taking it slow. Chat's going crazy. Got some people getting ready to hit up here in this chat. Of course, Falcons chat is always lit here on One Time for the Fan. Lowski said, coming to the stage, the one who needs no introduction.
Come on.
You already know what it is. Dan Burr said, it's that time, fellas. We got the NFL watching.
Yes, sir.
You already know. Dre said, what it do? Hashtag one-timers, hashtag the fan club. Dre's in the building. Hit that like button, hit that share button. Please hit that subscribe button if you do like the show. If you don't like the show, still, please hit that subscribe button. We'll find a way to make you like it. Guaranteed. Lisa Shepard from Blogging Dirty's in the building, checking in for the hashtag one-timers. Demetrius in the building. Said one time for the fan is in the chat.
What's good, Demetrius?
Love going to the Falcon fans here, Chase. It's always good to chat it up with the fans before we start the show. Jeremiah Weems is in the building. Lisa Shepard, like Grady Jarrett said, can't wait for all these pieces to come together. So much to talk about tonight, Chase. Chat's going crazy. We got a special guest getting ready to join in here shortly. Let's break the ice real quick. Shout out to the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah,
getting the job done. Shout out to Trey Young. Shout out to Murray. Shout out to Collins. Shout out to man. I can keep going, man. It's a Falcons podcast, but you know how it is.
No doubt.
Shout out to the home team, man. Atlanta now goes to play Boston, and I must say, if you get a chance to beat Boston, man, you are definitely a team to watch for right now in the East. But Boston is going to be a tough matchup. This goes back to years when Horford was here, and Joe Johnson and those days. Always tough to beat Boston, and still to this day.
The dynasty.
Gotta be bust. Chase, your thoughts on the Hawks real quick?
Man, I love it. It's every year playoff season. The Hawks always give us something to look forward to. It's past 2 years now we've won the play-in game to get into the playoffs. So it's kind of neat watching it, man. It's definitely exciting, and the boys always come clutch in the playoffs. We're gonna see what happens. It's gonna be a challenge.
One time for the fan, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. Shout out to the Atlanta Braves too as well.
Yep.
They got a little streak going right now. I believe the score is still. Was it 2-2? It's 2-2, top of the third. So let's pray on them Braves to get the job done. Oh, 3-2. 3-2 Reds right now.
Yeah.
Top of the third. So let's pray on the Reds. Let's play on the Braves to get the job done, man, because you always want to see the home team win. Now it's time to get to some Falcon footballs. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, let me call downstairs and see what's going on. Front desk, there's a car out there doing donuts in the parking lot. It's a 1969 Chevy Camaro. You know who that is?
Excuse me, sir. Oh, that's Mr. Scott Carasik, folks.
What? Scott Carasik's in the building?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're telling me, Big Low Country? Scott Carasik's in the building. Well, let's go ahead and get straight to it, man. One time for the fan. Shout out to Country for checking in downstairs at the front desk. Country, man. Appreciate it, brother.
You already know, bro.
Big Low Country Sports. Check him out on his platform, too, as well on YouTube. But we have a special guest in here. Let's not keep him waiting no more. It's time to talk some Falcons football. Scott Carasik is in the building. What's up, Scott?
What's up, man? I love Big Low. He's in my fantasy football league. I love that guy, though.
Hey, Big Low is the greatest, man. And when I got a chance to check out, when I started doing the podcasting thing and started getting into the community with all the podcasters and seeing what was going on, Big Low Country was one of the first shows I watched, and I just been glued just from the first time I watched the show, man. He's a great guy. He has a great platform. The audience, the fan base, everybody who tunes into his platform is great too as well. So shout out to all the Falcon fans who represent over here from Big Low Country Sports, man. We really do appreciate it because he's really a good guy, though. He's really a good
great guy. Absolutely great guy.
Scott,
what's up, man?
For those that do not know, here in the chat, we got a lot of people here. Some that you may know, some that you might not know. But just let us know a little bit about yourself, sir. How long you've been a diehard Atlanta Falcon fan. And that's just pretty much going to break the ice on where we're getting ready to go, man.
Man. So growing up, I basically was really deep into college football.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sound real young when I got into pro, but I wasn't really into pro until I got to be 9 or 10 years old. And that was when we had Jamal Anderson and the Dirty Bird and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's the hometown team. I'm going to root for them. So ever since then, and I claim since birth because I didn't really follow NFL before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been.
And what's your college team?
So growing up, I was a Georgia Tech fan. Put that out there. But I didn't go to Tech. I went to the Citadel.
Oh, okay.
So I don't claim a big school anymore. If I had to claim one, it might be Alabama because that's my wife's team.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I don't care. I really don't care who wins in college because I watch the college game to see who the Falcons might draft the next year.
I love it. Had to throw the Falcons in there somewhere.
Just being honest with you.
That's true. Because you do a lot of great work when it comes to posting about the Atlanta Falcons and what they have going on. Now, your love for the game of the NFL and the Atlanta Falcons, right now, how excited are you going forward into this season?
Oh, this roster is going to be so much fun to mess with. On defense, a lot of people get worried when I post up these guys are going to be the starters for certain spots, but it's there's going to be a lot of rotation, especially in that front seven. Outside of the linebackers, you're going to have 1-2 guys there, but at edge, at defensive end, at nose tackle, you're going to see a lot of rotation. You're going to see Grady Jarrett and Calais Campbell on some plays with Onyemata in the middle. And then other plays, you're going to see Graham and Campbell and Eddie Goldman because they're let's get the run stopping unit out there.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying Grady Jarrett can't stop the run, but take some off his plate.
A lot.
Let first down be, the Eddie Goldman down, and then have Grady come in on second and third.
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice a little bit of pass rushing, but Graham's not terrible at it. Sacrifice a little bit of pass rushing with Graham instead of Onyemata, but again, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're still going to have a beast pass rusher out there in Campbell. You're going to have some plays where Campbell's out on the sideline and you got Graham and Jarrett and Onyemata in there. Just rotate those guys over and over and over again. Keep them fresh. Because what's more dangerous than Grady Jarrett? A fresh Grady Jarrett.
Mm-hmm. Chase, your thoughts on just hearing Scott right there just talk about just that rotation with the front seven alone. He hasn't even got to the secondary yet. And we're starting off the podcast in the first 5 minutes to bring this guy in. We already went to the front seven. Just your thoughts already, Chase, about what Scott's saying right now, how fans could be just truly excited about seeing this new rotation with the Atlanta Falcons, and just the amount of pressure that you see on that D-line getting ready to go crazy on some of these teams this season.
Yeah, man, I agree completely 100%. Just all the rotation pieces that we're going to have this season. You talk about rotation with Onyemata, Calais Campbell on the edge, Grady Jarrett. Just with Calais Campbell and Onyemata, that's already, I believe, more sacks than what we had as a whole team last year. Mm-hmm. So just to have dominant pieces like that you add to the line, and whoever we draft, that may be D-line. So just talk about rotation and adding to that piece as well, it's huge. Something we didn't have a lot last year. You look at the cornerback situation last year, it was pitiful. We was playing off the practice squad players. So to have that rotation in just a year's difference is huge. Terry's definitely been doing some great work this offseason.
Going from Abdullah Anderson and
Jalen Dalton,
Timmy Horn, Jalen Dalton, and
Anthony
Johnson,
Rush at the beginning of the season,
Anthony Rush to Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Eddie Goldman. Like, that's a huge change right there. Getting Graham back from an injury, which same kind of injury that Kyle Pitts had, same kind of MCL tear. Mm-hmm. It's a 6 to 8 week injury to get back full time for the bigger guys like that. Mm-hmm. But he had it happen at week 10, week 11.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by now he's healed. By now, both he and Kyle Pitts are fully healed.
Mm-hmm. So when I expect Casey Hayward to be around that point too as well.
Well, Casey Hayward was a pec.
Mm-hmm.
So pecs they're a little more sore, a little more sensitive. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't shock me if we got to training camp and Casey Hayward was like, you know what? I'm just going to hang it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's that time.
Falcon fans, we're in the building here with Scott Carasik, talking Falcons football. Chase is also here with us. No Bodie tonight, but he'll be back with us on Sunday. Going over this roster again, Scott, what move in the free agency was just surprising to you? Because I'm sure Falcon fans had a lot of names they were throwing out there, from Twitter to Facebook groups of who they wanted to see. I tweeted about Deron Payne and Jesse Bates. We got Bates, didn't get Payne, so I feel good. But I trust in the organization and the moves that they're making. But what was surprising to you? What player when they came into Flowery Branch?
Not one player, but two players were surprising. And the big surprises for me were the trades. Trading for Jonnu Smith, trading for Jeff Okudah. Those were both moves that to me were saying Terry Fontenot's playing chess, not checkers. Because what he did was he traded Dean Marlowe for a 7th at the trade deadline. He traded a conditional 7th for Rashad Fenton, and Fenton didn't play enough snaps. He had to play over 200 snaps for that to convey. So we kept that pick because Fenton didn't earn playing time, which is important when you look into what he did with trading that 7th rounder that he got from Marlowe, because he said, hey, I got 3 7s and I got an ass of cap space. I'm going to take the part of this cap space. I'm going to bring in Jonnu Smith. I already know that Arthur Smith loves him. I already know that Arthur Smith sees a role. We know that Desmond Ridder likes throwing to his number 2, number 3 tight ends as much as he likes throwing to the number 1 guy, because he got Michael Pruitt a touchdown. He hit Michael Pruitt more, and honestly, Pruitt was functionally more than number 1 when he was in, a lot more than you would expect. So I think Jonnu and Kyle Pitts are going to see a lot of targets in this offense. And for a 7th round pick, if you get a guy who's going to put up, let's say he just puts up 30 catches for 400 yards, and gets like 4
Great.
touchdowns.
It's great.
It's worth it, right?
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing that you want to see. And then Jeff Okudah for a 5th. So the Calvin Ridley trade is giving at least a 4th in 2024 and then a 5th this year.
Yep.
So they traded the 5th this year for Jeff Okudah. And Jeff Okudah's a hell of a player when he's healthy. His big issue is he's been injured. And he's a lot like AJ Terrell was coming out of college, in that his big weakness was ball skills.
Yeah.
And I think if he worked with Terrell, and I think that's part of why they have Casey Hayward here, because Casey Hayward's all ball skills. So if you have Hayward just kind of like, hey, here's how you attack the ball in midair with the physical talents that both Okudah and Terrell have, you could have a, Sheldon Brown, Lito Shepherd type situation, or
that is true. Back in the old Philly days, yeah.
What was it? Bobby Vincent or Troy Vincent and
Troy
Bobby
Vincent,
the
the
other
Patriots,
guy.
right?
Miami, when they had Patrick Surtain and Sam Madison, like if you're going to build a monster defense and you've got 2 corners that are that good, you don't need one Deion Sanders and then one schmuck on the other side. It's better if you have 2 corners that are good, a solid set of safeties that can make plays on the ball like Bates and Grant are, and then funnel everything to the middle of the defense, because then it's your linebackers that are getting attacked. And with the raw potential that Troy Anderson and Michael Walker have, although I think they do bring in a guy like Jack Campbell later in the year, or in the draft sometime. Later in the draft. I think they bring in a guy like Jack Campbell to go with Troy Anderson and really have that 2 guys that are just physical freaks, can cover a lot of ground and have good instincts. You're going to have a really tough defense to play against. Will it be a top 5 defense? I don't know. Does it have potential to be top 10 this year? Yes. Very, very much so. Could the pass rush get over 40 sacks this year? I think so. And I think Caden Ellis is going to be a huge upgrade there. He's going to see a lot more snaps. And I think it's going to be more as a true edge. Now, again, when we're talking about pass rush, there's not one guy that owns a pass rush. Pass rush is all about rotation. Pass rush is all about teamwork. Pass rush is all about angles. If your 1 tech and your 3 tech aren't creating any pressure the way Timmy Horn and Jalen Dalton were just kind of bodies out there, and Matt Dickerson was just a body out there, you no matter what your edges do, they're not going to gain any pressure. When you have game wreckers on the inside, and your outside guys are solid enough, those outside guys start getting more confident. And as they get more confident, they start trying new moves. And as those moves start working, you start seeing, oh man, AK-47 has 9 sacks this year. D'Angelo Malone has 6 sacks this year. Well, to go from 2 and 1 to 9 and 6 or 9 and 7,
big leap.
Huge leap for the defense as a whole. But then you're also getting 4 and 5 on the inside with each guy in there. So when you got 4 guys who are getting 16 on the inside, those 2 guys get 15 right there. And you got a blitzing Caden Ellis just coming from all sorts of different angles, because the nickel package is probably going to be more of a 3-3-5, where you can have Ellis just come around and do all those different angles, because that's what they were doing with the Saints in nickel. They weren't really doing that 2-4-5 that the Falcons were running. They were doing the 3-3-5, and Ellis was blitzing in the middle and the outside.
Imagine the leap that Troy Anderson takes this year with Ryan Nelson at the hands of the defense. He's that Caden Ellis player to me.
He loves blitzing with his linebackers. He shows on the stats that he loves getting at it with the linebackers. Nielsen, DeMario Davis' stats was. I'm looking at Troy Anderson like, man, you got a big task this year, my friend. Big task this season.
For me, with Anderson, the question is whether he can learn how to play that intermediate zone. The minute he learns how to play that intermediate zone to a competent level and can get 1 or 2 picks to go along with his 3 or 4 sacks, that's when you're really going to start seeing him take off. Because his athletic profile suggests he should be Brian Urlacher. Not saying he's going to be anywhere close, but if we could get like a Keith Brooking type stat line out of him, that's more than enough for a guy like Troy Anderson.
That is true.
Especially
Falcons fans. Whew! That's a lot. And
Man knows his stuff.
I'm telling you, that's why we had to get Scott on the show here. Glad for you to take the time out of your day to come over here and talk to the Falcon fans, because we're excited about this season. Everybody's excited, especially all the moves that's been made. But you're looking at the defense and the offense and looking at this roster. What are your thoughts on this guard spot now? Because going into draft night, which we'll talk about the draft shortly, but BPA hearing Terry say this, and that guard spot is open, and there are some guys in the first and second round, even possibly early in the third, who can probably fill that position, or they can probably look outside and grab somebody, sitting around in free agency. But what's your thoughts on the guard position right now?
So I'm going to kind of go into what I think Terry is trying to do overall, and then what I think is going to happen with the guard spot. So I think Terry Fontenot wouldn't have his roster in a spot where he couldn't go what he feels is the best player on his board at number 8. And if he feels he can trade down a little bit and still get one of his best players on the board at number 11 to 16, he's going to do it. So if you look throughout the roster, it's either someone who started last year or it's someone who he feels is going to start this year and be very good.
And when speaking of the trade down, wouldn't somebody have to, on the other end, pick up the phone and call the Falcons? Are they calling other teams and saying, hey, look, I know you guys wanted to come up earlier. We've had this discussion before. Like, do you know anything about that process too as well? Because a lot of people said trade down for Bijan, trade down for Skronsky. Do you know anything about how that can work on draft night?
Very much, yeah. So just to kind of circle back a little bit, when it comes to the roster, you got guys you feel you can fill in the spot. Matt Hennessy is who I think is the penciled in starter at left guard right now.
Yeah,
and then
let me get my notes. Let me get my notes. Man.
And then I think there are guys in the second and third, like Cody Mock. I don't even know if I said that man's name right. Cody Mock, Chandler Zavala in the third round. I'm a huge fan of his.
What about Osiris Torrance and Steve Avell?
So
those are high second round picks, probably the first two guards off the board in the second round. TCU gave up no sacks. I think he was second highest rated guard.
Avila, I can see. Osiris Torrance, not so much. Avila's got the foot speed. He could play right tackle if you need him to. Steve Avila is a lot like Justin Blaylock, where he's a bigger body, but he's a moving body. And I think they could take him in the second or third as well. Osiris Torrance, not so much. I don't think he's
an undersized guard.
It's not that he's undersized; it's that he's slow. He's oversized. He's just slow. So I don't think he's the kind of guy that they're looking at. Pete Skronsky in the first, Paris Johnson in the first. I could see those as potential options if they're the best guy on the board. But I keep going back and I keep looking at Chandler Zavala, and I'm like, that guy might be our second round pick. And I wouldn't hate it just because the fit's there. Like in a vacuum, he's like a late third, early fourth. But for the Falcons fit, he could easily be a second rounder. Steve Avila could easily be a second rounder. A name that I'm not a lot of people are putting out there right now is Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame. He played center for 4 years, and then he moved over to guard with his extra fifth year. I mean, Jarrett Patterson could very easily turn into that guy.
Some has said give Jalen Mayfield another shot. Your thoughts about that?
If he can earn it in camp, why not? But he's got to earn it in camp. If you don't earn it in camp, then I don't give a damn how good you think you are. Just like I thought Matt Hennessy should have been the starter at center because I thought he played better in preseason. But the coaching staff felt it was Drew Dahlman, and it took Dahlman about 8 games to really earn, personally, my trust. But once you saw him in there, it was like, okay, Dahlman can get it going eventually. Dahlman can be that guy. You just got to clean up his snaps. He can block. I'm not worried about Dahlman's blocking at this point. I'm worried about his snapping. So once he gets his snaps together, I'll be full on in on him the way I was with like Todd McClure, because that's the kind of guy that Dahlman can be. Now, going back to your idea of the trade down and how that works. So right now, NFL teams are discussing trade up, trade down, what would happen if this guy's there at this point, what they would offer.
What we don't see behind the scenes.
What we don't see behind the scenes. And that's probably why we saw the Jeff Okudah trade happen.
Mhm.
Because why would the Jeff Okudah trade happen 3 weeks before the draft or 2.5 weeks before the draft?
Teams are getting their positions ready where they want to be.
Because teams are getting the positions of where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Detroit's like, either we're in the perfect position to take that number one corner, and Okudah would be the odd man out. So let's send Okudah away.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can grab a 5. Or Detroit's looking to move up, and they need that extra 5 to kind of compensate what they're going to be giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Because Detroit could be moving up to 3 and saying, we want a quarterback. We want our franchise guy. If Richardson's there at 3, that might be the guy they trade up for, because he's a guy who can sit behind golf for a year or two and then be that long-term solution for them.
So we're hearing this on One Time for the Fan here tonight, Falcon fans. The Detroit Lions could possibly be in the running.
Jack,
complete speculation.
Are we hearing that?
I've mentioned that, Jack.
Complete speculations, but put that note in there, because the Lions have brought in all 4 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They signed they kind of signed a couple corners too as well. I know they traded off Jeff, but they signed corners. 2. Yeah.
But they could be looking at a corner. They could be looking at a defensive end, defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm. How about running back, Scott? What do you think about running back for the Lions?
Running back's not what the Lions are looking for right now. They've got what's his name? David Montgomery.
This is great.
Yep.
I'm glad.
So I don't see them really looking at running back.
Mm-hmm.
I think the earliest we would see a guy like Bijan Robinson go off is the Falcons
10.
Pick at 8.
8 or 10, yeah.
Or the Eagles pick at 10, exactly. But again, depends on how the board falls. And that's the other thing with the trade down. The Falcons could be looking to trade up. That could have been why they called Detroit. Say a Will Anderson or a Jalen Carter is there at 6 and they don't feel he's going to be there 2 picks later. They could say, hey, Detroit, we'll give you, looking back at it a couple years back, the Bears traded up with the 49ers. They gave up a 3rd round pick and a 4th round pick to move up 1 spot from 3 to 2, or from 4 to 3, and take Mitch Trubisky. When you're taking Mitch Trubisky and you're giving up a 4th and a 3rd, it's a dumb move, but it's only dumb because you traded up for Mitch Trubisky and not Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
That's what made it stupid. Trading the 3rd and the 4th is great value.
In
I think
your
the Falcons could do a similar thing by trading a 4th this year
and
then saying, hey, we'll give up a 4 next year. We should have an extra one from the Calvin Ridley trade. Because at a minimum, they're getting a 4. Now, if that Calvin
in your
Ridley
opinion,
trade
if you trade back, it has to be Skronsky or who are you trading back for right now?
Trading back, you're not trading with a target in mind. That's the whole point.
You're just trying to collect.
If you're trading back, you're sitting there at 8 and you're going, I have my 4, my 5, my 6, my 7, my 8 guy all still on the board. I was expecting to only have 1 option. I have 5 options.
Yeah.
So now I can trade back 3 or 4 spots and still get one of the 5 guys that I have graded exactly equally.
That is true.
I want to narrow it down without having to do the work of actually narrowing it down.
And this is for the Falcon fans that just truly believe there's only one BPA. No, there's a lot on the board when you're looking at BPA. Some people say no, it's just one guy. It has to be one guy. No, it's not like that.
You're gonna have NFL teams do a horizontal board. So there's a vertical board that everybody's used to because that's how everybody puts their big boards out. But in reality, teams are doing, I have all these different guys at all these different positions, and I have these guys with just to throw. I'm not going to give exactly how they do it because I don't know because every team is different. But I'm going to take all these guys that are top 10 graded, and I have 8 of them. 3 of them went off the board already, so I've got 4 through 8 still on my board. I'm here at 8. I've got an offer to jump back to 12 with the Jets. The Jets want somebody. Maybe Will Levis is on the board. Maybe they're saying, you know what? Screw Aaron Rodgers. I'm grabbing Will Levis. So they trade up to 8. Or maybe it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's who they want. So they're trading up to 8 to get another wide receiver. Or whatever the hell they want to do because they're the Jets and they're a poorly managed franchise.
If you're listening, New York media, it's One Time for the Fan. We're talking about the Falcons out here.
New York media agrees with me, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
That the Jets are just piss poorly managed. But yeah, so you trade up and you trade back, and the Jets are like, all right, so to get up to 8, we have 2 second-round picks. We'll give you one of those 2 second-round picks, and we'll trade up to 8. Now the Falcons have 2 second-round picks, and they're at 12. And of those 5 guys, 2 are left while they're sitting there at 12. Well, now the choice is easier. Which guy fits better?
Yeah.
So that's why you trade back, is you feel like you've got a good offer. You're like, you know what? I'll take that second-round pick. I'll move back. I'll let 3 of these 5 guys go because I can't grab them all. And I'll have my choice kind of whittled down for me. And the people who are out there thinking, oh, no, NFL GMs don't think like this. This is exactly how everybody thinks like this.
Yep.
That's in this world, because they're like, listen, I know I've got a choice, but if I spend too much time here deciding, I'm going to have my pick passed, like what happened to Jacksonville all those years ago when they were trying to get Leftwich.
Falcon fans, I'm trying to tell y'all, when it comes to having guests on the show, there's none other like Scott Carasik right now. I'm telling you, fans are going crazy in the chat. They love this. Chase, how do you follow up with that? Just going over, we're about to get to the draft shortly. We're going to talk about Desmond Ridder after, but the roster trading back. Your thoughts, Chase, because right now, Jeff Okudah move. We'll talk about that shortly. Never know what can happen before draft night, but trading back, Chase, in your opinion, what you got?
Yeah, man, it's something I can see happening. This draft is stacked in whatever position you want, really. Running back throughout this whole draft is stacked. Receivers pretty nice, and as well as O-linemen. You got 2 nice guys, one from Ohio State, one from Northwestern. That's a beast, can play guard and tackle.
And the kid from Georgia.
Guard is the issue. Yep. So you got a lot of needs. I wouldn't say that we're a team that's got a shit ton of needs, but we have needs, and it's not very hard to figure out what those needs are. So I think Terry knows what's best. So trading back and getting 2 second rounds to potentially maybe even trade back to the first round would be nice. So, it's determining on what Terry wants to do, what kind of leadership he's got going on, but I'm cool with it. A pick at 8, would be nice if we had a potential BPA at 8, but to get that guy still at 10 or 12 is cool too.
That'd be perfect. Falcon fans, bring those questions right here to the chat so we can go ahead and get as much as we can out of Scott right here, because we're definitely going to bring him back some point in time this season to talk more Falcons football. But tonight we're going to get Scott about maybe 30 minutes. Last guest we had was 2 hours, Scott, so we ain't going to do you like that, brother.
I mean, I'm good. I'm good till 9:15 if you need me. We're good.
Okay. Perfect. Well, let's get to the first question then, because the chat is opening up. Miss B, Scott, she wants to know, do y'all think the draft, they are going offense more so than defense, since most of the free agent signings are defense? Or was our defense just that damn bad? How do you think the draft is going to look out for the Falcons? You think they're going to weigh more on the offensive side or more on the defensive side with their picks?
They got 7 picks, and I think it's probably going to be 4 on offense, 3 on defense. But it also just depends on how the board falls. The board could fall in a way where they're looking at it and they're saying, you know what, I'm grabbing, 6 offensive players, 1 defensive player. The board could fall where they're going, you know what, we're taking 5 defenders, 2 offensive guys, because this is what we have at the top of our board. It really doesn't matter what the plan is going in. It's all about how it shakes out on draft day.
Yep.
Question here. One of my friends here, Chris, wants to know. What the hell? Oh, sorry, lost the text. All right, yep. My friend Chris wants to know, do you see the Falcons making any trades in the second or third round?
So that's where it gets interesting, because the last 2 years, well, the last 2 years in 2021, they traded down 5 spots. Probably a situation like what I was talking about. They had 6 or 7 guys, and they were like, you know what? We'll trade down 5 spots. We can still get one of these 6 or 7 guys. And Richie Grant was right there. And they're like, yep, that's who was at the top even before all of this. So that makes it a lot easier. We're going to grab Richie Grant. And then in 2022, they traded up because they were like, there's no way Ebiketie gets to us. Because there's 3 teams in between us that all need an edge rusher, and Ebiketti's our top guy. You trade up when a guy is up here and the rest of your board is down here.
Mm-hmm.
So you trade up because you're like, this top guy, I'm going to go grab him.
Mm-hmm.
I won't be able to answer that question of whether they trade up in the second, trade down in the second, trade up in the third, trade down in the third, until we're actually watching the draft on Thursday night toward the end of the night. They might trade up from the second round into the back end of the first. They might say, you know what, Jackson.
Is that your wide receiver move?
That might be. They might be like, let's go get Jalen Hylett. Let's go get, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Let's go get Quentin Johnson. I know not everybody loves Quentin Johnson, but I watch Quentin Johnson and I see a guy who had a quarterback who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, who compared very well to Reggie Ball in my eyes.
Shout out to Reggie Ball, went to school.
And is still sadly the 10th best quarterback in this draft. So a lot of these wide receivers this year are the product of horrible quarterback play, and they still made something happen. And if Quentin Johnson's there at, I don't know, 27, 28, and they traded back already to say 7 or 12 or 13, and they picked up that extra second round pick, you trade that second round pick, you trade the third round pick you've already got, move back up into the first and grab them. I wouldn't hate that because I think Quentin Johnson has a lot of traits that you need in the Falcons offense.
That's true.
Especially when they run those vertical stems. There are a few guys that can cut a vertical stem that quick. He does the same way Drake London, the same way Kyle Pitts do. If those guys are cutting vertical stems and that's what you want to see from your wide receivers, Quentin Johnson's going to be that guy you want to grab.
What do you think about Jordan Addison? Does he fit?
Addison's a super tough eval because he's way too light. That's my issue with Jordan Addison. I think they need a little more seat in the pants, if you will, from their wide receivers because they like their wide receivers to get out there and block. And they want guys that are going to be able to take that blocking punishment and then turn around and go out and run a 9.
Falcon fans, we have a lot going on here tonight. I know the chat is going crazy. Bring your questions to the chat so we can go ahead and get as much as we can right here at Scott. We got another question right here going for you, Scott. Justin Newman wants to know, what do you think is our biggest need for the first pick? If you're looking at the roster right now going into draft night, Terry makes no more moves. Let's just say you don't trade back, you don't trade up. You're sitting at 8. Give me a couple players. What do you think is the biggest pick, the biggest need right now for the first pick?
So it's tough when you're drafting in the top 10 to go, what's the biggest need, and then draft for that need. Because the biggest need may not always be the best positional value for that fit. Because the biggest need right now on this entire Falcons team is left guard. That's the biggest need.
There it is, Falcon fans.
But you don't take a left guard at number 8. It's just not a great positional value. One of those money ball things, if you will. You can get the same, you can get 99% of the value of that number 8 overall left guard as what you can get at 44.
That's true.
So might as well get that 99% of the value at 44 because it doesn't make sense to pay a premium for that position.
What do you say to some that say you can't plug a second and a third round guard into your starting lineup? Because some would say that you can't draft a guy like Voorhees or guys like Steve Avale or such.
You can't take Voorhees and plug him in because he's got injuries. That's why you can't plug Voorhees in. But I would say I would tell them go to ourlads.com, look at their NFL draft charts, have them sort it by position, and go to guard, and just look down and count the amount of guys that were second round picks and third round picks that were guards that started right away. Guys like Ben Cleveland, Kevin Zeitler from the Ravens, guys like Joel Bitonio from the Browns.
Browns, yeah.
Guys like Dylan Radins from the Titans, who was very good last year. Quinn Miners from the Broncos. Ben Powers, who used to play in Baltimore. Joe Tooney, Dylan Parham. I mean, I'm just going down. That's just AFC guys just kind of going slowly down the list. The Giants have a guy, Josh Eziudu. The Eagles, Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens, both their starting guards this coming year were second-round picks. Washington, Sam Cosmi. The Bears, Cody Whitehair. The Lions, Jonah Jackson.
Dropping facts.
The Packers, Elgin. I can't say his name. I hate saying his name.
We butcher
Elgin
names here.
Jenkins.
Just give him a nickname. It's all right.
Ezra Cleveland, Ed Ingram from the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Brady Christensen over with the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Luke Goedeke from the Buccaneers. I'm literally just going down reading names off this chart because these are all guys who started their first year. Second round, third round linemen on the interior are first round picks on the interior.
Put that on the t-shirt. Put that on a t-shirt for the fans in the chat here. Your thoughts. Another question coming in. A lot of talk about Bijan at 8. Is he your BPA right now looking at your roster?
I don't know. Depends on who goes 1 through 7. Because right now, if I'm looking at the top 10 players in the draft,
a lot of Bijan fans in the chat. A lot of
for
Bijan.
the Falcons, I'm going Jalen Carter,
Got to.
Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson.
Okay.
And then I've got. I used to have a corner there, but I
was
just
Christian
pulled him
Gonzalez,
off.
but he's
It was Christian Gonzalez. Fourth on my wish list at that point, Bijan Robinson.
Okay.
So to me, when I look at it, if there's 3 quarterbacks that go in that top 7, and then you have Witherspoon at 6, because we already talked about the Lions going corner or quarter. I mean, that leaves Bijan right there. Or if one of those teams above us goes with an offensive lineman or a wide receiver or something unexpected in that top 7, well, that changes the game. And then maybe Jalen Carter's right there. Maybe Tyree Wilson's there.
Any thoughts on Nolan Smith?
I would take Nolan Smith. He's right after Bijan Robinson.
Okay.
I would gladly take Nolan Smith at 8 because I think he has that potential to be the next Khalil Mack. And I'm one of those guys, I love the heady, smart leader types. And I mean, Nolan Smith was basically a de facto assistant linebackers coach for Georgia when he got hurt. He was like, you know what? I'm hurt. I can't play. I'll be coach. I don't care. I'll be the coach. And he went and he coached up a unit with his coaches there, and he helped them out. He did a lot of stuff in the background where he was basically a coach helping out that entire unit, make sure they knew their assignments, knew what they were supposed to do. If that's not the kind of team player that Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot are looking for, I don't know what is, because that to me sounds like a future defensive captain.
Yeah.
Throw him in there with Jesse Bates and Grady Jarrett in 2024 as the defensive captains. You got a guy at all 3 levels.
How lit this podcast is. It's been what 40 minutes into the podcast, we now mention Jesse Bates. Like, that's how lit this team is right now. Like, we're about to get to the second. We haven't even really talked about Jeff Okudah yet. Like, the defense is lit this year. So Falcons fans are really excited. I even talked to my rep yesterday, and she was like, "Yeah, a lot of people are buying season tickets." So you know, it's getting to be that exciting point of the year where Falcon fans truly believe in this team. Justin Newman has a question for you, and a lot of Falcon fans had this question too. What do you think about the situation with Devin White from the Bucks? Any thoughts about that? I know you're sitting at like $6 million right now in cap space. I think they're pretty much done. They re-signed Cordell Hodge.
So technically, they have $11 million in cap space, right?
Yeah.
So they have the space. They want to pull in Devin White. They can. I'm including the draft picks when I post up my 6.37. I think is what I came up with. There's ways to get around that. And if you do trade for Devin White, you're extending him like almost instantly.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a move the Falcons are going to make. And not because they don't like Devin White or anything like that. It's more on the Bucs end. You're not going to trade your best defensive player to your division rival and have him show out against you twice a year in his prime.
You hear that, Falcons fans? It's personal.
It's not that the Falcons don't want him. There's 31 teams out there that wish that they had Devin White. the Bucks are just going to cross 3 teams off that list and say, no, 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 you can't have him. But if he wants to go to the Broncos, sure, fair game, whatever. If he wants to go to Dallas, cool, Cowboys, you can have him. If he wants to go to the Jets for whatever reason, the Jets can have him. You know, like, it is what it is.
We're about to get to the draft here shortly. Then we're going to talk about Desmond Ridder. I know Chase has a question, too, for you, Scott. But Jeff Wolf, one of the diehard Atlanta Falcon fans, has been pretty spot on what he said here on the podcast. And he's saying Van Ness or it's Robinson. Your thoughts about that? Because Jeff Wolf will tag me 2 a.m. like, I told you, you don't see what's going on. So I just want to put it out there. Van Ness and Robinson, haven't heard too much talk about Van Ness otherwise than what Myles Garrett did. Shout out to the homie Myles the GOAT.
So
any thoughts about that?
I absolutely love Lucas Van Ness if you take him in the middle of the round.
15 to 25. Somewhere around there.
12 to 20.
Okay.
Middle of the round.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly fine with him there. Absolutely okay with him there.
Mm-hmm.
At 8, you're going to have better options. That's just how it works. You're going to have better options at 8.
Yeah.
Do I take Van Ness over Bijan Robinson? Hell no.
Mm-hmm.
Do I take Van Ness over Jalen Carter? Hell no. Do I take him over Nolan Smith? No. If I see a guy can be a Khalil Mack, why would I take a guy who I think can be a Patrick Kearney?
Yeah.
And I don't say Patrick Kearney pejoratively. I say it as
no, he's a good player. Yeah.
He's a good player. He's a
I
multi-time Pro
think most
Bowler.
Falcon fans understand where you're going with that. Yeah.
But like, he's not Khalil Mack. He's not a game-changing defensive player. I think Nolan Smith could be a game-changing defensive player, especially with his off-field. And as we're seeing this year, off-field is very important for a lot of these teams. And that's why Jalen Carter might even be there at 8. But if they pass on Carter at 8, it's because they took someone that they feel has a higher ceiling and has the off-field to back it up. And I might get killed for saying this, but it would not shock me to see Nolan Smith as the guy they've locked into at 8. And even if Carter's there, they may trade down to 10, just a couple spots, pick up a second-round pick to force the Eagles into it. And the Eagles get Jalen Carter, and then the Falcons go back to 10, pick up Nolan Smith, and now have the Eagles second rounder at the end of that round.
That's tough.
That's tough to see. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Cox next year, Brandon Graham. Sheesh.
You know what? Let them have them.
Yeah.
Because the Eagles are gonna be the Eagles. They're gonna be one of the top 3 teams in the NFL next year, and the top 2 teams, or top 3 teams in the NFC next year. Regardless. So let them have Jalen Carter if you feel like you really like Nolan Smith that much and Jalen Carter's right there and you trade down. It's because you didn't like Jalen Carter enough and another team said, I don't care about his baggage. That man could be the next Sue.
Chase, what? I don't even know where to go, man. This is like, bro, like we're in class right now, guys. Like this is for real. Falcon fans, Scott is giving you guys a lot of knowledge right here about some of the directions the Falcons can go. And I must say he is spot on with a lot that he said here tonight, because from the draft to how the roster is shaping out to be, to we're about to get to Desmond Ridder in a minute. I can't even wait to hear what he has to say about Desmond Ridder. But Chase, anything you got for Scott before we get ahead and talk about this draft? Because Falcon fans are excited. I got people asking questions about second, third round, and so on. We definitely want to get as much as we can. So, Chase, what you got, bro?
Yeah, man, he's kind of already answered my question. But my first question was who your favorite player of the draft was, but y'all already obviously said Jalen Carter. So,
well, hold on. Favorite player in general?
Favorite player in general.
For the Falcons.
Favorite player in general.
My favorite player in general ain't even close to a first-round pick.
Okay.
Who are we looking at?
My favorite player in general is a linebacker who I think the Falcons could take, named DeMarvion Overshown. And I just
got to look him up.
I just love the name, honestly, but he's a solid player on top of it. But when you watch him, you're like, I see a little Levante David in him. Like, he's a fun linebacker to watch play.
Cool.
Texas linebacker.
Yeah, Texas linebacker. He's another one of those guys that he needs
The
to
Texas missile, they call him.
He needs a little add a little bit more seat in the pants, but once he does, he'll be pretty good. I think a worst case for him is a Devondre Campbell type situation.
That can't go wrong, man.
Just add them to the list of who I'm going to be watching on some tape this week. Got a lot of time to watch some tape. Chase, yeah, man.
Yeah, just another question for you. How did you actually get into what you do? Blogging dirty. How did you get into that?
Oh, man. So when I got out of college in 2010, I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I went to school for engineering, and I was like, I enjoy writing about football. So I started a website and just kind of put my stuff out there. And then towards the end of the 2010 draft, towards the end of the 2011 draft, Bleacher Report hit me up. So I worked for Bleacher Report for about 4 years.
Nice.
Then I worked for the Falcoholic for about a year, and this place called Sportsnot for about a year. Both sites are awesome. Obviously, check them out. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to try the editing thing. So I tried editing at Blogging Dirty. Did not do well at it. Was not an editor. No, I know where my lane is. I'm a writer. I'm an analyst. I like doing podcasts. Around that time, I started a podcast with Aaron Freeman. We did that for a good 5 years.
Nice.
And I was writing for Falcons Wire by that point.
Falcons Wire.
Nice.
Yeah, Falcons Wire. I was with them for about 5 years.
Okay.
And then I took a year off. I was just like, you know what? I really need to get my head straight and just not write articles and kind of focus on some other stuff that's going on in my life. And then January came around and I was like, I'm kind of getting that itch to write again. Let me
get back out there,
back into it. And I was like, but no, let's hold off. And then March came around. I was like, I got to write about these free agent signings. I was like, I'm excited now. Like
every group, everywhere you see was just screenshots and just look what Scott said. Look what Scott said. Look what Scott Carasik said. He said this. He said this. So I was like, bro, we got to get Scott on the show. Of course, for being on Twitter too as well. A lot of Falcon fans love your takes of what you have going on with the Falcons. We're going to talk about the draft here, and then Desmond Ridder. I know a lot of fans in the chat want to talk about Desmond Ridder because we got to talk about the draft too.
Ridder's going to be good.
Yeah,
but
is that a good with a capital G, or how we looking right now? Is this like he's just going to be good, or
I think we need to see a little more of him
for him to be even more than good? Like how are we looking right now?
So they're setting him up to be a little more than good.
Okay.
They're setting him up to really develop him. I think if you look at, I think his career actually parallels very well with Matt Ryan's at this point. He doesn't have the whole first year. He's got a smaller abridged version of it, but I think sitting might have done better for him than playing for at least the first half of the season. But they should have put him in the Bears game. Really given him an easier team than the Saints for his first time out.
Right.
Because I think by the time he had gotten to the Saints game, he would have worked out all the kinks that he had in those first couple games, and he would have been a lot better.
Yeah. Or if London never would have fumbled in that fourth quarter too as well.
You know what? If London doesn't
like
fumble
right
that,
there,
we win that game.
If London doesn't fumble there, it's very possible that in his first start, he's leading a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter in a fourth quarter comeback against the Saints. And there would not be a Falcons fan out there that would be like, nope, Desmond Ridder's not the answer. They'd be like, why didn't we start him sooner? Honestly, I think if that one play changes, the next week they come out against the Ravens, they beat the Ravens and they finish the season 4-0. And then people are looking at it like, we went 4-0 with this kid, and he made some mistakes, but he was good. And we went to the playoffs and won the NFC South with him starting. Like, it's a big difference in the season if you start him earlier. We still probably have a loss or two, but I think you start him at that Bears game, they go 5-2 in the final 7 instead of 3-4.
Chase, we were there at the Saints game. That would have been great seeing that final drive because Saints fans were turning around looking at us like,
yep, they were getting ready to leave.
They were getting ready to leave. It was tough. But we had a great time down there too as well. Let's get to the draft, Chase. You ready, man?
Let's do it.
Because Falcon fans are talking over here in the chat. We gotta get to some questions. Who are some running backs in the later rounds that we should be paying attention to? Matter of fact, after some running backs, who are some more players that we need to be paying attention to? We're gonna talk about this on Sunday, but please give us some names right now so we can do our research before we have our podcast.
I mean, this is one of the strongest running back classes I've ever seen, but I really like Israel Abanikanda from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I like Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State if you want that muscle mouse, that mighty mouse. Tank Bigsby from Auburn.
Yeah.
Evan Hull from Northwestern. Just to throw a couple of names out there, I like Muhammad Ibrahim. He's very good from Minnesota.
6 names. No Jahmyr Gibbs? No.
Well, you said later rounds. I'm assuming you're talking day 3.
Oh, okay. That's true. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs is a day 2 guy. Like,
that's true. Yeah, go ahead. You got it, brother.
I'd take Jahmyr Gibbs at the end of the first round. Yeah. I'm like, what? What are you? Everybody's a big fan of Ty J. Spears, but I think he ends up being a day 2 guy. That's why I didn't mention him.
Yeah.
Ty J. Spears, okay.
And then just throwing another name out there. This is more priority free agent kind of area. Cameron Peoples from App State. If you want another Caleb Huntley clone, that's your guy. And they grow him big up there in the mountains, man. He's 6'1", 217. He is not a small dude.
6'1", that's a Derrick Henry.
That's a big boy in the backfield.
Yeah.
And then kind of more on the fullback side, but Hunter Lupke from North Dakota State. Okay, Jacqueline. Van Ness, Tack McKinley. I disagree there. All right.
That's tough.
Tack McKinley's issue was his head, right? He had way too much going on up here, and he couldn't keep his focus. And he was all focused on Twitter and all sorts of other stuff instead of just focusing on the game. Van Ness loves football. He's going to focus on the game. I don't see the higher level, like team captain level intangibles from people coming out about him. He didn't start in college. Those are kind of like my 2 big knocks on him. But I'm not saying he's got bad intangibles. He's a hard worker. He's a talented player. He's going to be a gym rat. He's just not that leader that you want in the locker room for that particular spot in the draft. You're taking a guy at 8. You want him to lead his unit.
I got a guy for you. Different position. He's a receiver. What do you think about Rashee Rice?
Rashee Rice is a day 2 guy for me.
Yeah, that could be. That's a potential target I could see. He's a 6'2", 22 years old. He's definitely kind of a Drake London style.
He's 6'1", more of that Roddy White style kind of guy. He's physical with you at the line. He uses his hands when he gets off on the release. He's a willing blocker. He's going to throw you on the ground when you want to go against him. And he's going to demoralize a corner when he goes out and blocks because it's going to help him when he goes against him on a release for a play action.
Yeah.
You can't get called for offensive pass interference for pushing a guy to the ground when they're doing a run action in the backfield because it doesn't look like you're doing offensive pass interference. Right. They're never going to call that. So if you got a guy out there, receiver, that understands that and pops the corner to the ground, gets a free release down the sideline, that's a big play.
Yeah.
He ran like a 4.51, but I don't think that's really what he runs.
No, he looked a lot faster in college.
He looked a lot faster with pads on.
Yeah.
A lot faster. I was predicting a 4.45 out of him. And when you see him out there, he runs he looks like Roddy White.
Yeah.
I swear to God, you go out there, you get Rashee Rice in the draft, you not fire TJ Yates, you move TJ Yates from wide receiver to quarterback. and you bring in Roddy White as your wide receivers coach, because TJ Yates was a
Falcon fans,
quarterback in the
they
NFL.
love that. They can't wait for that.
And then Roddy White would be a great wide receivers coach. And the reason why you do that is you have Roddy coaching himself, and you have Roddy coaching a guy who he sees as like, I compare Drake London to Keyshawn Johnson. So Keyshawn was always one of Roddy's heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You give him a Keyshawn, you give him a Roddy, say, hey, have fun. You know, coach those guys up. See what you can do. Yeah,
diehard Atlanta Falcon fan Anthony White has a question for you, Scott. He says, "Is Nolan Smith the body type that Nielsen wants? It seems he wants a big edge rusher like Cam Jordan, Trey Hendrickson type of mold. What do you think about that?"
I think a lot of people look at what the Saints did under Dennis Allen, who is really running that defense, and think it's what Ryan Nielsen wants in his defense.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who gives the blueprint for the whole team is Arthur Smith. And if Arthur Smith says the team's going to be multiple on defense, the team's going to be multiple on defense, which means you're going to have 3-4 looks. You're going to have 3-3-5 looks. You're going to have 4-3 looks. You're going to have 2-4-5. You're going to have big nickel. You're going to have small nickel. You're going to have dime. You're going to have all sorts of different things. What you're not going to have is a guy out there in a specific mold, because that's what his old team used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because those guys that were drafted by his old team were drafted under Sean Payton's image, drafted under Dennis Allen's image. They were not drafted under Ryan Nielsen's image of the player.
I love how you said that. That is true.
Ryan Nielsen's image is probably completely different than what they want. There are a lot of guys out there who coach, and they get – see, Dre gets it. But there's a lot of guys out there who coach, and they coach under a guy who coaches this one scheme, this one way his entire career. Mike Zimmer was a coach under Bill Parcells for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened? He went and got his own team. Mm-hmm. He came to Atlanta and started running 4-3. Mm-hmm. He got full control of defense, started running 4-3. Despite running 3-4, 2 gap his entire career, he moved to Atlanta, and now he's a 4-3 guy. Mm-hmm. Goes to Cincinnati, now he's a 4-3 guy. Goes to Minnesota, now he's a 4-3 guy. I think we're seeing the opposite here with Ryan Nielsen. Ryan Nielsen is probably more of a 3-4, 3-3-5 guy, and he's been under 4-3 guys the last 10 years, which you can steal some concepts. You can steal a lot of concepts. Mm-hmm. But I think he's a 3-4 guy who is running a 4-3. And I think with
Chase?
Jerry Gray here, that also kind of gives you they're probably running a 3-4.
Chase, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, just my overall thoughts on Nolan Smith, man. I've said it plenty of times here on the podcast. This guy was a top 10 draft pick before the injury. Was projected, possibly a top 5 at one point. So for Nolan Smith to go to us at 8, I'm cool with it. Like we talked about here. Yeah, we talked about here multiple times, rotation, to have a stacked, position like that, to be able to rotate throughout the game, to have a healthy Nolan Smith on the bench, to have a rested Grady Jarrett on the bench. I'm all for making this defense a top 5. I'm a big defensive guy. I'd love to see a top 10 defense, top 5 defense. So any piece to add to that D line or D in, D back, wherever it is, I'm for
Can never have enough good pass rushers.
Exactly.
Falcon fans, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. We're going to wrap it up here shortly. I'm in a group chat with some Falcon fans. Shout out to my homeboy Derek. He wants to know about Justin Schaefer being able to plug into that guard spot.
That could be a possibility too. They went and got a just street free agent in Elijah Wilkinson and plugged him in for 9 games this year as the starter.
Yeah.
They plugged in Chuma Edoga for a game. They plugged in Hennessy for 2.
Colby Gossett
for a couple. These guys weren't exactly world beaters before they came to Atlanta, but when they're in Atlanta, they look great.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to who the offensive line coach is and the guys around them. Mm-hmm. The Falcons are returning 4 out of 5 guys last year who played every meaningful snap at offensive line. All 4 guys. You got Matthews, Dahlman, Lindstrom, and McGarry. And you plug Hennessy in there as the guy who was basically starting at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So when you got those 5 guys out there
that you all drafted too as well,
you had the chemistry, and then you could add a draft pick in there that's like, okay, well, this is really the guy we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people kind of kill the front office for the Mayfield pick, but Mayfield wasn't supposed to be out there as a rookie.
Thank you.
That's true.
They were supposed to put Josh Andrews in there, but he got hurt.
Yep.
Mayfield was supposed to be a backup as a rookie at left guard and supposed to learn the position and then go out there this past year as the starter.
Mm-hmm.
That plan didn't work out. Life always throws us curveballs. It is what it is. But this year, they have a really good plan. Right now, it looks like Hennessy's going to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Hennessy's in a contract year. If Hennessy shows he's worth an extension, they will give him an extension.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they're basically going to draft his replacement. And if Hennessy isn't that guy and he shows he's not that guy halfway through the year, his replacement might be the starter.
Yeah.
So, and for all we know, Mayfield could go out and earn that job. We don't know what's going to happen there.
There's some competition battles coming up at camp. I think Falcon fans going to be watching. Definitely that guard spot is going to be one that's really big for Falcon fans.
I do also want to throw this out there. Mayfield
Yes,
only had 15 games of college experience when he got to Atlanta.
Yeah.
He started 16 in Atlanta. He has more experience in pro football than he does in college football.
Yep.
Scott with the facts. Trying to tell y'all Falcons fans. Go ahead, Scott.
That's not a good mix for a lineman.
Going to the next question here. Hot take before we go ahead and get to Desmond Ridder. What about the receivers? Who do you like, Scott?
So many good receivers in this draft. But my personal favorite are Tyler Scott, Rashee Rice. I'm a big fan of Cedric Tillman. Even though I have him like 14th on my board, that doesn't mean I wouldn't take him higher personally. It's just kind of where I see his talent settling out when he's in the NFL. I really like Parker Washington. Going down a little bit farther, Andre Iosivas out of Princeton. One of those heady, really smart receivers. And Michael Wilson from Stanford in that like priority free agent range.
Who's the receiver from SMU that met with the Falcons? Anybody? Chase, you got
That's
that
Rashee Rice.
That was Rashee Rice.
That's Rashee.
Yeah, that's Rashee Rice. That dude's a beast.
Yep. I've been high on him since before mock drafts were coming out. He's been a guy on my list for a while.
Jacqueline got a question for you. What thoughts on the center position?
That's Drew Dahlman's spot.
Yeah, it's Dahlman. Coach has said it. That's Dahlman's spot.
I mean, they handpicked Dahlman. They like his pedigree. They like how he plays. The Mud Duck comparison, you can really see that Todd McClure comparison where he can't really hold on to a guy one-on-one, but he's going to hit him. Like, he's going to at least get in their way and not be an easy pushover. Like, he's Mud Duck. Get him a good left guard. You're going to be very happy with the center position.
Falcon fans, we haven't talked about this much on the podcast because we're looking at the roster. You have Pitts, you have Geno Smith, Parker Hesse. I think Rainey's still there too as well. Felipe Franks, I believe too as well, and then John Fitzpatrick. But any thoughts about Georgia's Washington being drafted by the Falcons?
So this is where it comes into matchups, right? You don't want to overspend at a position, but if you feel like you can get a matchup nightmare like Washington, and he's just sitting there at 44, go ahead and grab him. I know that sounds crazy to some, but like, you'd have a lot of investment in the 3 tight ends. That Jonnu Smith contract's really only a 1-year deal. It's really a 1-year prove it. So if you have Washington and Pitts and Smith, and those 3 guys are out on the field in 13 personnel with London and Algier out there, you could have Pitts lined up out wide. You could have Jonnu Smith lined up in the slot. Make it look like it's an 11 personnel formation.
Take us to week 1, Scott.
And play some bully ball. like.
Okay, second down, Scott. I mean, you're a knowledgeable guy, Scott. Second down and 4 right now. week 1, you're up 14, 2nd down and 4 right now. What's your personnel you putting out there?
If I've got Darnell Washington on the field,
Mm-hmm.
I've got Washington and Pitts and Smith. I honestly line up Smith next to the quarterback in like a shotgun. Pitts is out at wide receiver. Washington's that's the inline tight end. London's the other receiver. I'm probably calling a motion. I'm probably running a play action fake to Algier or to Patterson there and have some sort of slipper under. A defense beater. See? Defense beater. Got a slip under. Got Washington doing a slip under. I got London running a post, and then I've got Pitts coming in on that crosser and just hitting them at all sorts of different levels right over the middle of the field.
Yep.
On a 2nd and 4, I'm up 14. I'm punching them in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Kyle Shanahan play you just ran right there?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
My offense would be a mix of Kyle Shanahan's and Mike Shanahan's.
Yeah.
And throw in a little bit of
Matt LaFleur, or
no, a little bit of Dirk Cutter's 4
Dirk
verts in
Cutter?
there just for some variation. Throw in some Don Coryell, old school concepts that no one's seen in a long time. Just really kind of go back. Go back to the wall too.
One more question here for Scott before we go ahead and get to the Desmond Ridder. Then we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Do you think Nolan's injury might affect the Falcons' decision?
He'll be healed by day one. They don't care. It's not an injury that has high recurrence, so it wouldn't really affect my thought process on him.
Chase, something you want to talk about? Desmond Ridder. We're heavy here on Desmond Ridder, especially all the talks about Lamar Jackson coming here to Atlanta. I didn't see it. Of course, there's a lot of people outside of the Falcons community. NFL media trying to push him to Atlanta. Then there was some Falcon fans who picked up on it, was like, yeah, he'd be great for Atlanta. Don't worry about the contract. Pay him the money. Don't worry about Desmond Ridder. And then the news was made that Ridder's going to be your QB1. What was your thought, Scott, when the decision was made that Ridder's going to be your starting quarterback? Chase, definitely follow up with that because we're heavy here on Desmond Ridder. We want to see the kid shine.
They chose Desmond Ridder as their starting quarterback for 2023 when they drafted him in the 3rd round of 2022. I mean, I'm just putting that out there. Like the plan was never for them to go with Marcus Mariota long term. The plan was never for them to have Marcus Mariota. Come on. No.
We're not supposed to say that name here on the podcast, but we had to bring it up tonight.
Voldemort. Anyway, the plan was never for them to have Ridder sit as long as he did, but he was basically asking to be like, listen, let me get a couple more reps. So I don't understand why they would have. I said TJ Yates because I was like, yeah, it's a backup quarterback. Like Marcus Mariota was TJ Yates to Derek Carr. Like you don't want him in the game.
Yeah. I was too sad about Marcus Mariota. When Ridder was selected, I was like, okay, we got to play him. Let's see. What week? Week 2, week 3? No.
They pushed it to the bye, which to me, had the bye been earlier, they would have started him earlier. I think they were just waiting for the bye.
The upside down Falcons throw was it for me. The upside down Falcons throw in Carolina. That was
it.
Yeah. But yeah, Ridder, I think what they're doing with Ridder is a lot like what Mike Smith did with Matt Ryan. You give him that first year, let him get acclimated to the league. That second year, you add another couple weapons or two. Like they got Tony Gonzalez and they really kind of built around him. And you've got that power rusher like they had with Michael Turner, only they have like a 21-year-old Michael Turner now instead of a 27-year-old Michael Turner.
Yep.
So you got that powerful running back. You've got that good, strong rushing game. You do a lot of play action, really kind of let him build his confidence off of play action. And you've got great wide receivers to throw to, although in this case, one's a tight end, but you've got Kyle Pitts, you've got Drake London, and then you got Jonnu Smith as more that third option. So who the number 2 wide receiver isn't as important at this point. Although it's nice to have someone who's competent. Mac Hollins should be fine this year. but I don't see him as a long-term option. And then you have the long, deep ball guy with Scotty Miller.
Yeah.
But don't undersell Drake London as a deep ball guy. Don't undersell Kyle Pitts as a deep ball guy. By adding a guy like Scotty Miller, you can pop him out on the outside and just have him run a streak and pull that safety away from the seam. Desmond Ritter's best routes in college were attacking the seams. Drake London's best routes that he ran in college was attacking that seam. Kyle Pitts' best route in college was attacking that seam. Anybody else noticing a pattern here?
Does Cordell Hodge fit into this personnel?
No.
Special teams matters? I mean, I saw the post today when they said it. It was like, oh, well, special teams does matter.
Cordell Hodge is a gunner. And I love Cordell Hodge's effort and like what he does on special teams. And he seems like he's the best dude ever and like a great teammate. But let's be honest here. If he's your number 2 wide receiver, your number 3 wide receiver, you need more wide receivers. You need better wide receivers. He's not a starting wide receiver in the NFL. He's a wide receiver 5 who plays special teams and is your special teams captain, pumping guys up and knocking heads out on special teams. But he's not an NFL wide receiver, not by any long shot. Not a guy you want to rely on in a fourth quarter of game 17. You need to win to get to the playoffs. You're not throwing a Cordell Hodge. Cordell Hodge isn't even on the field. Not even with the Falcons' current options. Falcons' current options on the field in that situation. You're going to put Mac Hollins out there. You're going to put Jonnu. You're going to put Pitts. You're going to have London. And you're going to have Patterson. You might have Algier instead of Patterson. Hell, you might have Algier and
Bijan
Robinson. Well, you might have Algier and Patterson out there and have Hollins off the field. But you want to sometimes go out there with personnel sets that are going to confuse the defense. I think what they're trying to do this year with Ritter is have a bunch of different personnel sets to confuse the defense with, be smarter than the defense, make it tougher for the defense to guard, and give him some easy throws to just not
check downs too as well.
Some check downs, but more easy throws in that 10 to 20 yard area. You know, those where it might look like a check down because you got a streaking Scotty Miller going down the field, but he's hitting Drake London on a deep cross right around here on your screen. And London catches the ball 15 yards downfield and cuts up 10, and that's a 25-yard play. And Falcons fans aren't going to be mad like, oh, man, he missed Scotty Miller deep. Yeah, he missed seeing Scotty Miller deep, but his first read was London. He made the right play there.
Yep. That's what we got the first booty chains.
Got the first, got an explosive play, and now instead of being at our own 40-yard line, we're at their 35, and we're in field goal range already 6 plays into the drive.
So the wide receiver room, Scott, Drake, Mac, Scotty Miller, what are your thoughts about outside of those 3 right now? Is it going to be Frank Darby, Jared Bernhardt? People's like, you got to put Bernie in. You got to put Bernie in. They're going to draft the receiver. Is a receiver on your draft board?
I would gladly draft a receiver outside of the first round. I don't think there's a guy worth it there at 8. I think it's a very weak class. But I do think Jared Bernhardt could sneak on this roster and could sneak in for that wide receiver 3 role just because of his chemistry that he showed last year with Ritter in preseason. Because Bernhardt and Ritter were like this in preseason. And you saw it, and I was like, man, I wish Bernhardt was healthy right now because he would have been the wide receiver 3 last year. Back with the roster they had last year, and he would have gotten some snaps. He would have gotten some balls thrown his way. Ritter made a point to get Frank Darby a catch. Of all people, he made a point to get Frank Darby a catch in the NFL.
You did.
I mean, and quarterbacks don't go out of their way to do that unless they absolutely appreciate a guy for working his butt off. And wide receivers don't build that bond for the quarterback to do that unless they feel that the quarterback's the guy. That's the other thing that people don't realize. They don't see the behind-the-scenes stuff that you're getting from Desmond Ritter. You're seeing, like, you're just seeing him on the field every week, right? The coaches are seeing him come in at 5 a.m. every day, work out, go out to the field, throw with the wide receivers, Then they start practice.
Mm-hmm. They don't forget about the film too. Head into that film room too.
Well, and that's right after that. After that, then they start watching film. And then he's staying late after practice, watching more film, watching cut-ups, studying other quarterbacks and what they do, studying defenses from other teams and how they run their defense and how to attack those defenses and who's had the most success with what play and how he would feel in that play and how he would react in that play. And he's doing that. He's a grinder. That's the kind of stuff that Matt Ryan did. That made him so great. I know some fans out there don't love Matt Ryan because recency bias and his last year here wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Ryan is the top 10 to 15 quarterback of all time. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's the MVP, and he may not be the guy who made all the big flashy plays, but he made all the medium to easy plays look like a cakewalk.
Yeah.
And Chase, you know about this too. And Scott, you can probably agree. When they got rid of Matt, and it is what it is, but as fans, we're all fans of the quarterback. We want to win the game. Yeah. So even if Matt did something right, Matt did something wrong, at the end of the day, he scored a touchdown, teams moving down the field, moving the chains, everybody's having a good time. It's that feeling of just trying to win this game. But now, with Matt being gone, I didn't cry about it. You know, there was some people I heard that was crying about it, and they wanted to be a Colts fan. No, it was time to move on. We went to the next person. It was Marcus Mariota. Wasn't too happy about it, but I still rolled with the team. But when they drafted Desmond Ridder, I knew this is the franchise quarterback. This is the guy. Putting him in the room with London during the camp, doing the little picks art during the season with him in London and Algier at the park, and little certain things I was seeing the Falcons doing. Like, I really want this guy to be the franchise quarterback. And you can see it in the hype videos too, when they're putting on the jerseys and doing the. You know, it was just everything you can just feel that he was going to be the franchise quarterback here.
It's because of how he is off the field. And he's a mature dude. He may be 23 years old, but I'll put it this way. When I was 23, I wasn't half as mature as he was. I was out there partying and doing dumb stuff when I was 23.
I definitely was too.
He's out there and he's like, all right, well, I've got my wife and I've got my daughter and I've got to, be a man and I've got to work hard. And he lives football.
Yeah. He's a young old man.
He looks old, but the thing is, though, Desmond Ridder looks now like he will at 40, and he's at 40. He's going to look exactly the same, just with a couple gray hairs sprinkled in.
Falcons fans, let's get to one more comment here in the chat before we ask Scott one more question, and we go ahead and wrap it up here. Definitely, Scott, I got esports tonight. I got my team. They're hitting me up like, "Where are you at? What are we gonna do? Do we need a sub?" Like, don't worry, guys. We're okay. I'm all right. But Sterling Woods wants to know, do any of these two players fit into your offense if you draft them right here? These two players will lighten it up.
Oh, yeah.
From the college football to, I think it was Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
I would take A.T. Perry in a heartbeat. Absolutely. A.T. Perry's an outside guy. Tank Dell's a slot. But I would take both those guys. A.T. Perry's more of like a third-round guy. Tank Dell, I would probably take in the fourth, but the Falcons might take him earlier. Those are the kind of guys. Like, I know this is said a lot, but wide receiver is like a basketball team. You want to have 5 guys with 5 different skill sets. Now, look at it as like a small starting 5. You want to have a power forward. You want to have a small forward. You want to have 2 shooters, and then you would have a point guard. Right now, they have the power forward. That's Drake London.
That's right.
They do have that point guard. That's Scotty Miller right now. They do have that small forward, Mac Hollins.
Are you considering Pitts your center?
Need some shooters.
Are you considering Pitts your center?
Pitts is your center. Your tight end should be your center.
Okay.
So your shooting guards, your slashers, if you will, those. That's really what they need to get. Or they need to look into a long-term option at small forward with Hollins there under a 1-year deal for not a lot of money. Go out and get your small forward. Go out and get that A.T. Perry type. He would be perfectly fine. Go out and get Rashee Rice. Go out and get someone like that. Because your power forward and your small forward should be your number 1 and your number 2 guy. Now, your number 1 guy can sometimes be a small forward. Your number 1 guy can sometimes be a power forward. But those should be your top 2 guys. complementary skill
teams
sets.
like to work out and lock in their 1 and 2 guys early. Why didn't the Falcons go lock in a number 2 receiver with the money that they had this season? Is it next year? They're looking. Is it Stephon Diggs? People's talking about, hey, you got to go get Diggs next year. He's going to fit it. Why didn't they lock in their wide receiver 2 this year for a long-term deal? Matt Collins is the 1 year. Scotty Miller's the 1 year. How are you rebuilding your offense next year if these guys are going to be out the door?
This year's class was trash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to compare it to past years, it wasn't a great wide receiver class in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really need
was your best, maybe.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need to break the bank for a great wide receiver when you've drafted a guy at number 8 and when you've
Mm-hmm.
drafted a guy at number 4. Those are really your top 2 options.
Mm-hmm.
Teams don't want to go to a spot, or players don't want to go to a spot where the top 2 options are basically already set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
So you go out and you get guys that complement, and then you draft, and you try to draft and develop. And that is what this front office seems to be about, is draft and develop and build and hit on players in the draft. And if you don't hit, it's okay. You can move on. Like, they had no problem moving on from Jalen Mayfield. He was a 3rd-round pick. Dimitrov's would have forced Jalen Mayfield to be in there.
Oops.
They would have been like, you know what? Jalen Mayfield's in here regardless. No matter what, I don't
Mhm.
care. Jalen Mayfield's in there. This front office didn't do that. This front office, like Arthur Smith, who do you like?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just out there getting the groceries. I'm going to give you 90 guys.
That's what Arthur said. Yep.
My GM, like my view of a GM is, in the offseason, your job is to go out there and get me 90 football players
Mm-hmm.
that you feel will give us the best shot to build a 53-man roster that can win a playoff.
I'm gonna go out here and coach
playoff
this
games.
team. Yep.
And then my coach with my GM, they need to work together to pick those final 53, because it should always be a collaborative effort there. But when the GM's out there, he should know what his coach likes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So he should say, all right, well, my coach really likes Calais Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go out and get Calais Campbell. My coach really likes David Onyemata. All right, I'm going to go out and get David Onyemata. My coach really likes Caden Ellis. I'm going to go grab Jaden Ellis.
Yeah.
My coach likes Jesse Bates. My coach likes Jonnu Smith. My coach likes this guy. So I'm going to go out and get these guys, but then I really like Scotty Miller. My coach may not love him, but I'm going to throw him in there.
But this is a me type of guy. Okay.
Just like here's an option, because I think he could fit in, just to throw another idea out there. You ever go to a meeting at work and you're like, well, hey, just want to throw this idea out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the NFL, that's what those kind of signings are. Scotty Miller wasn't a big money signing. They can cut him and have minimal cap hit. He's a
Real ideas.
deal.
Ideas become reality for real.
So he's just like, see what you can do with him. If you don't like him in camp, we'll just cut him.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Collins, see what you can do with him. If you don't like him in camp, we'll just cut him.
Same as Joe Graziano, the defensive end we picked up.
Yeah,
from the Chargers
exactly.
too.
Joe Graziano.
Mhm.
You know, I think he could fit. Let's see what happens. If he doesn't do anything in camp, you cut him. No big deal. Minimal cap hit kind of moves. Geronimo Allison was exactly that kind of move.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes a GM will go out there, they'll sign somebody, and the head coach may be like, well, I don't know anything about this guy, but if you think he fits what I want, or if you think he might give us a different look, I'll give him a shot. And if he doesn't fit what I want, he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Easy enough. And sometimes that's all it takes, because Kaderil Hodge was that kind of guy. He was another one of those where it worked out. Hey, Kaderil Hodge, boom. Demir Bird.
Auden Tate could have been another.
Auden Tate. That's the other side flipping and not working out.
Mm-hmm.
But the coach isn't the GM for a reason. The GM's job is to buy the groceries. The coach's job is to cook the meal.
Mm-hmm. That's well said right there. Falcon fans, I know y'all got a lot to say, and Bodie's not even here tonight. So just imagine if Bodie was here, what would have happened? We definitely would have had to stop and do another podcast. But Scott, another question for you real quick before we get up out of here.
Okay.
If it doesn't work out with Ritter this year, are you using your first round pick next year on a quarterback?
I don't know. It depends on what you mean by don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence.
I don't want to say this as a Falcons fan, but you're having a losing season, probably week 8, week 9. Fans are talking about put Taylor in. Ritter's not he's not performing well.
If you're benching him because
Taylor
Heineke starting at that point, then yes, you go and get a quarterback.
Yeah.
If he throws for 3,000 yards, rushes for like 300, throws like 15 touchdowns, kind of has like a Daniel Jones year, if you will, you give him another year because it's really his first year starting. I think he's going to surprise people. I think he's going to be over about 3,600 yards.
I said that. Yep.
I think he's going to be around 20-ish touchdown passes, around 10 interceptions. I think he's going to rush for about 400. He's not a run-first guy, but he can run. So I'm thinking like a Dak Prescott's first year, which if he puts that kind of year up, nobody's going to be like, oh, the Falcons don't need a quarterback. They're going to be like, hey, they got to steal. So I think that's kind of what we're going to be seeing out of him. Now, if you're like that, oh, no, that's not good enough, that's a bad year, I'd be like, come on, man. He's a rookie, essentially. Like, yeah, he has some time, but he's essentially a rookie. Now, if he goes off and does like a Jalen Hurts type year, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Scott, Terry talked about building a hostile environment. This team right now is ready to go compete. Do you see us making a run this year? Is this the year that we can have that positive spin on things? It's been the past 5 years. It's been so rough, losing record after losing record, can't make the playoffs. Do you see something in this team this year? Is it possible that Falcon fans right here on this podcast can get some hope from Scott to say, we're going to make probably a run to the playoffs. We can probably win this division looking at this team right now.
Let's look at the schedule, right? I'm gonna jump right into that.
Let's go.
You got the 3 NFC South teams. You're playing each of them twice. If they can't do 4-2 in that, I don't know what team can, because that is a weak schedule. You know, give the Saints a win, give the Panthers a win, because I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to play us tough like they always do. They're going to pull one out. We always seem to split those series. Whatever, it happens. 4-2 in the division right there. You've got the AFC South, which is Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Tennessee. 3 of those teams are hot garbage.
You should be able to sweep that division.
And then Jacksonville, we should be about even with. So just to be conservative here, we'll say 3-1, right? Then you've got the NFC North, which is Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. Minnesota is actually trash.
Really? In your opinion?
Is actually trash. They went
outside of Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, that team is
they went like 13-4 last year, and 11 of their 13 wins were because they went 11-0 in one-score games. I'm sorry, but that's
keep it real with us. Keep it real with us. We love it.
That's luck. In an average year, they go 5-6 in those games. So instead of being 13-3, 13-4, they're a 7-10 team. They are a 7-10 team. That's how you should look at them in a vacuum. 8-9, 7-10. They are a 500 team. And then they've had a nice little exodus. Green Bay with Jordan Love starting. Jordan Love is booty. So again,
so is Detroit the best team in that division that we're going to be playing this year?
Detroit and Chicago are the best 2 teams in that division. And it could very well come down to the 8-8 Detroit Lions versus the 8-8 Chicago Bears in the final week of the season. Winner gets
always like the Ohio's boys. Yeah, from North, most NFC North games are like that. Yeah,
you're gonna have a very mediocre division that's gonna look a lot like the NFC South did this past year. And I think the Falcons can easily go 2-2 in that division. So you got 4-2, 3-1, 2-2. That's a total of 9-5, right?
Okay.
Before you look at the last 3 games.
That's playoffs already.
That's already playoffs, right?
Got Washington, the Jets, and the Cardinals.
Okay, Washington. Awful. The Jets. You already know how I feel about them. But if they actually go
we talked about that about an hour ago,
if they actually go and get Aaron Rodgers and we play them early in the year, we should be able to beat them. If we play them late in the year, I think the Jets beat the Falcons. Especially because I think it's going to be in New York. So I don't like the idea of the Falcons going up to a cold weather area. It's not a good mix.
It's going to be a cold game. You got Packers, you have Chicago, you have the Jets.
You're going to get a cold game at some point.
Yeah.
So again, that's the Jets, whatever, and then the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to be atrocious, man. They're going to be number one pick bad.
Yeah.
Especially with Kyler Murray out for probably the whole season. So you got 9-5. I see a team that could easily be 10-7, 11-6 next year, just based on how bad that schedule is. If they live up to the expectations that we are going to put on them this offseason. If that defense plays like a top 10 defense all year, this is an 11-6 team. If Desmond Ridder goes out and throws for 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 10 picks, leads this team, if the running game is basically the same as it was last year, which was amazing, this is an 11-win team, period. Maybe a little luck, a ball bounces here or there, they're 12-5 or 13-4.
That'd be sweet.
Hey, keep going. No, keep going. No, keep going. What else? What else?
Makes me
like, get to undefeated.
It looks a lot like the 2010 team in a lot of ways. You got a massive, just beastly running game that's going to grind teams down. You've got good receivers. You've got a quarterback who's ready to break out. And I know that now you don't have the time that you did back then to really let a quarterback kind of come along. But it's okay because everything's like you need instant gratification. A quarterback only really gets 2 years to prove himself.
Social media plays a part of that too as well. Everybody's like, get him out of here. 2 games in the season, get him out of here.
That's the way it is. But let's say everything goes, best case scenario for the Falcons, you're looking at a 13-4 team possibly. Because the ball bounced their way. They got lucky bounces. They were, I think, 5-7 in 1-score games this year. Yeah. Which is about normal for an NFL team. But say those 2 games, instead of being 5-7 this year,
7-5.
They're 7-5. And then those other 2-score games, they're 5-0 in those 2-score games. That's 12-5. The idea is that if you lose, you don't want to lose by more than 1 score, because that means that you were in the game and the other team just beat you because of a bounce here and a missed assignment there. Stuff that's fixable. You don't want to lose by more than 2 scores like they did against the Bengals, because that means that you basically got your shit wrecked. And no one.
That was a tough game. I was there. That was a tough game.
They got their shit wrecked. The Bengals walked all over them. They got steamrolled. They got pounded. They got pounced. Whatever you want to say. They just got destroyed. I mean, it wasn't the right fit or matchup fit for the Falcons to win that game by any shape of the imagination.
No AJ, no Casey too as well.
Yeah, no AJ, no Casey. You're down to your 3rd string, 4th string, 5th string corners going against the best wide receiver trio in the league, a top 3 quarterback in the league, one of the best, just all around offenses in in the league.
Let's add the fans to that too as well, because I was there.
Yeah,
those Bengals fans play a big part of it. The chants and the songs they have, every fan was on their feet. Not one fan. You thought it was an Atlanta United game, Scott. You would have swore you was at a United game at the Bengals. Nobody's sitting down.
The Falcons to have that kind of atmosphere.
We need it badly. We need it badly.
We talk about the hostile environment so much, and then you get fans that say the people behind you, Falcon fans, telling you to sit down. You're a Falcon fan. I went to Bengals. I'm going to tell you something in Cincinnati. I told a Bengals fan behind me, if I stand up too much for you, I apologize. I'm just here to see my team win. He said, nah, that won't be a problem. Started. By the end of the game, he turned around, he shook my hand, he said, told you it wouldn't be much of a problem. Every single Bengal fan. Case, I showed you the video. Everybody was on their feet from the moment kickoff to the end of the game. Same thing in Seattle, too, as well. So, Falcon fans, we got to create something in that Benz this year. I'm going to
tell you right now, when I go to Falcons games, I normally buy a ticket up in the nosebleeds for cheap. And then I go over and I stand over by Maggie B's or whatever it's called, Molly B's. And I just stand right there with my, posted up on that metal piece.
That metal bar, yeah.
And just hang out on that metal bar the whole game. That is what I do. I buy nosebleeds and then I sit there if I'm going to be at a game. Because for me, it does not make sense when I'm going to be standing all game to really have a seat.
Right.
And I get there early enough where I can claim that middle bar, and I have
Mhm.
fans go get me drink, or not fans, but friends go get me drinks.
Yeah, you guys hold the bar stand. Chase, you know how
Fellow
it works.
fans go get me
Yeah.
drinks. Like,
You move away from that bar, spot is gone.
yeah. And
but
I hold their spot for them while they go get me a drink.
Of course, you're a diehard just like us, Scott. So definitely, you're going to be at some games this year, home or away.
Probably
I'll
not
let you-
away unless the Jacksonville game ends up being around Thanksgiving,
Okay.
because I'll go to Jacksonville
Mhm.
for Thanksgiving this year. I don't go to a ton of away games.
Mhm.
I'm just going to put that out there. I tend to use a lot of my vacation time up early in the year, so that
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a group called the Rise Up Tour. We put on away game events for the Falcon fans that travel to away games. It started with 2 people in the group, me and my friend Thomas, who's doing another podcast right now on his cruise coming up. And right now we're over 1,100 diehard Falcon fans who travel to games. So we put on meet and greets. We put on events for breakfast, places you can go during the day, places you can meet up with Falcon fans, hotels where we're going to be staying at. Chase, you've seen it in New Orleans. We really get down. We've been doing this for about 4 years now. So if you do decide to come to an away game this year, let us know so we can roll out the red carpet for you and bring you down there to one of these games and see what we got going on, man. We rent out suites too as well. We do a lot when it comes to.
I'm telling you, man, Jaguars. If they play Jaguars Thanksgiving weekend, I'm down there. Hell, if they play Jaguars on Thanksgiving, I'll go to that game instead of hanging out with the wife's family.
Let's look into that. Chase, real quick on creating this hostile environment in the Benz. The team is there for it. You heard what Scott said about this season. It's a season that Falcons fans can be positive. You can have faith about. Because if this team gets the job done like they're supposed to, we're looking at a playoff run. I said it the other day in a group chat I was in. I said, Falcon fans, I've never been more excited right now in such a long time about what this team is going to do. And I said, get your playoff money ready. And then that's what Eric Parker responded, nah, get your Super Bowl money ready. So it's big. When you come on, Scott.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The NFC honestly is a lot weaker than people realize. Because if you look at the quarterbacks of all these teams, you're just like, huh.
Yeah.
There's really
you can win the NFC South though, right, Scott?
NFC South should be easy.
Okay.
But like you look at the quarterbacks in the NFC, you're like, all right, Dak Prescott, sure. Daniel Jones, meh.
Nah.
Jalen Hurts, okay. Sam Howell, no.
Nah.
Justin Fields, maybe.
If he's on a good day.
Jared Goff, no. Aaron Rodgers, gonna be
going to the Jets.
The Jets. Kirk Cousins, he's Andy Dalton by another name.
And Jordan Love's trash. You mentioned that earlier.
Jordan Love's trash. The Panthers are basically starting Andy Dalton or a rookie this year. The Saints have Derek Carr, man. The Bucs have Baker Mayfield, who's a turnover machine. The NFC Cardinals are going to be starting Colt McCoy. Matt Stafford's good, but the Rams, he may or may not really play a lot this year. Who knows?
He could be traded draft night. Is that true?
No. 49ers might have the best roster outside of quarterback, but who's their quarterback? And then Geno Smith was last year just a flash in the pan. Like, there's so many questions about the NFC outside of like Philadelphia and Dallas. Like the Lions or the Bears are probably winning the North. The West is probably going to be Seattle and San Fran again. The South is probably Atlanta. And then you've got the Eagles and the Cowboys. I don't know if the Falcons can beat the Cowboys right now. I don't know if the Falcons can beat the Eagles. But if the Eagles choke and the Cowboys choke, well, the Falcons are right there to take the division. Like, and Dallas likes to choke in the playoffs.
On paper, do we have a team to fear for most of the NFC? If you're looking at our team, if most NFC teams are looking like, well, what are the Falcons doing? Is that a team to fear?
Defensively, yes. Defensively, this team looks like it is going to have a top 10 defense, if not better. Offensively, you fear the running game. You're going to underestimate the passing game, at least early in the year. First 6-7 games, I think teams are going to very much underestimate
Stack the box.
They're going to stack the box. They're going to go 8-man fronts.
Force Desmond to pass.
They're going to force Desmond to pass.
Cover threes.
They might even do 9-man boxes. And then Desmond is going to start passing and start hitting Kyle Pitts wide open in that seam. And Kyle Pitts is going to be like, holy crap, he actually threw it to me in a place I can catch it. And then Kyle Pitts is going to be like, I got nobody around me. And he's going to
Watch
take
this
a
yak.
70-yarder
Yep.
off a 15-yard slant and just like
Stadium
Julio
will go
used
crazy.
to. And the Falcons fans are going to go crazy. The other team's going to go, what the hell just happened?
Beer showers in the stands?
You're going to start getting beer showered in the stands a lot earlier if that's what teams do. And a lot of teams are going to look at this roster and say, I'm just going to run blitz them all day. And that's going to be my game plan and force them to beat me through the air. And then by the time they're down 28-7 or 35 to 16, they're going to be like, they're going to be like, shit, what happened? What do we do? It's the end of the third and we're down 35-16. How do we win this game?
Shit.
And then they start unstacking the box, and that's when the Falcons run it right down their throat with Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson.
Clock management, move the chains, and just keep the game in the hands.
Exactly. Like, and whoever else they're going to draft this year, because the Falcons are probably drafting a running back.
Somewhere in this draft.
They're going to draft a running back.
So, Scott, you can agree. Edge, somewhere in this draft.
Edge somewhere.
Running back, somewhere in this draft. Wide receiver, somewhere in this draft.
Somewhere, yeah.
Offensive lineman, somewhere in this
somewhere.
draft. Safety, somewhere in this draft.
Cornerback.
Depends. Cornerback or safety, one or the other, maybe if they like the guy.
Hybrid player who can probably play like kind of like how
maybe a big nickel type guy, maybe a Hawkins type guy. Maybe if they feel like they need one and it's like the 6th or like the 7th round, they're like, well, we don't feel like paying the premium for him in free agency and undrafted free agency. We're going to go and just take him here because there are guys, and this is kind of revealing some stuff, but I've had an agent tell me I had my guy ready to sign with the Buccaneers. And then the Eagles turn around and draft him in the 7th round.
Shit.
And I was like, dang. And this was like a couple years ago, but he was like, the Eagles took him right in the 7th round. And when they negotiated with me, they were like, we're just going to pay the slot contract. And I was like, all right, easy, we're done. But I mean, that kind of stuff happens. But when the Eagles drafted him in his negotiations, they drafted him, called the agent, and then signed another one of the agent's players as an undrafted free agent.
Chase,
that's what happens.
You're hearing what Scott's saying right here in the NFL too as well. We have to go back to your question about the hostile environment that I asked you earlier. What do you see this team doing this year, Chase? Because we're about to go ahead and wrap it up here. Because this is, I'm about to pay the water bill and the light bill in a minute here in a second. Now, you go ahead, Chase.
Defensively, man, I think we're going to be a very aggressive team. You're going to see a lot of blitz packages, a lot of 3-3-5s, a lot of 3-4s, 4-3s. It's going to be a different scheme than what we're used to seeing. So you may see Grady out. Well, you actually won't see Grady out on the edge much anymore with Calais, and then especially if you get Nolan, and then you got somebody like Ebiketie. It's a lot of rotation there. So you're going to see a lot of faces coming in first, second down, third, fourth down. It's going to be different faces. I think you're going to see a lot of blitz. I think our passing game is going to be respected a lot more this year than it has been in the past. Offensively, yeah, man, you stack on what you did last year. You had a top 10 run game, top 5 at once in the league. So you build off of that. Defenses buy in on it, and then you hit them over the top, like Scott said. So I think you got an exciting season of football coming up. Definitely a playoff caliber team, something I've been longing for a long time since 2017. So to have that again, to have playoff football and buy a playoff ticket is going to be exciting. I can't wait.
I just want to throw this out there.
Go ahead.
The Falcons had a number 3 rushing attack in the NFL last year.
Yep.
And if you took out all the quarterback rushes
from Mariota,
basically
Mariota,
they would have still finished top 10 with no quarterback rushing at all.
Yep.
With 0 quarterback yards.
And you got basically the same line, just one plug-in piece.
You still have a top 10 running attack. And if they kind of stick with that same kind of thought process, kind of reduce the attempts a little bit, and start giving more passes, that 158 yards they had last year will jump up.
Mm-hmm. Very
So,
true.
Falcon fans, you are hearing it from the great Scott Carasik. Scott, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, 30 minutes to 45, 45 to an hour to an hour and a half. Scott, let me tell you something. I told you when we come here one time for the fan, man, fans love it whenever we have special guests. And tonight with the questions and you just bring your knowledge to the fans and let everybody hear what you have to say. People love it. I got more questions. I can go down the list. Matt Collins, Bijan Robinson. I got more. Man, people just hitting me up left and right. Like, dude, you got Scott up there. We have to ask a couple questions. Same like when we had Miles here, Chase. Everybody was just sending questions left and right. But Scott, we got to get you on somewhere in the around training camp, maybe before the season starts, just to see your thoughts right now at that point. You know,
I mean, I'm down to come on like. So end of May, I can't do anything because I'm going to be in the Philippines. But like last 2 weeks of May, I'm in the Philippines. But if you want to get me on early May, I'm down to do that too. To go over the
Are you going to training camp for any of the open days?
I don't go to training camp.
Okay. And what about the one at the Benz, the open practice?
I don't do the open practice at the Benz either because it's just a lot. It's the off season. I'd rather just hang out with my wife at that point.
I got you.
And going down and watching training camp doesn't tell me, like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this guy was great at training camp. This guy was great at training camp. And then all of a sudden he's not on the roster come September 9th.
Yep. Yep.
So why do I care as much about training camp as I should? You know, what matters is who's on that roster
week
that
1,
day before week 1. Because I'm thinking week 1's probably the 10th this year. So who's on that roster on September 9th? That's going to matter. That matters more to me than who's on that roster July 22nd, July 28th.
So let's do somewhere around the end of preseason, before, I guess, week 1, so that we get a chance to look at the roster, maybe the final cuts. Because don't they do the cuts differently this year where all the cuts
the final cuts should all be on like the 2nd and 3rd.
Okay.
Like that week.
This would be great to have you somewhere along that time. We're trying to book Scott here for 6 months out, so this is wild here for one time for the fan. Because,
and I'm saying I'll come back sooner than that, and then also come back then, of course. But
definitely, because we gotta get you and Big Country on Out of Your Falcon Mind. All these great content creators out here, who's talking Falcons football in a positive way. Scott, where can we find you on social media for fans who want to know just more about what you got going on and what you have when you talk about the Falcons too as well?
I put my my handle over here. I still don't understand this camera at Carasik S. And then you can go ahead and follow, tweet at me. I'm very engaging with people. I enjoy just talking with people all day. It's one of those things. I'm ADHD, so I'll be working. I'll be writing up loans and I'll see like, oh, okay, someone tweeted me. All right, boom, let me tweet them back. Like, it's just like, boom, squirrel. But like my squirrel is a focused squirrel at this point. Like I'm very Falcons oriented.
Gamer as well.
I am a gamer. I play this game called Splitgate a lot.
Okay.
If you're on
PS5,
Splitgate,
that's PlayStation.
That's cross-platform, honestly.
Cross-platform, okay.
Scar 988 on PSN if you want to just hit me up. And if I'm playing a game, I'm probably down to jump in with you on that game because I don't care. I'm out there gaming. As long as you're not sitting there shouting slurs into the microphone, we're good. Like
Chase, he said PSN. That's PlayStation. I know you have a GameCube. So you might want to go ahead and update it.
I'm gonna put it this way. I am a system agnostic. All right. I prefer the PlayStation, but I own an Xbox as well. I own pretty much each one of the last like 4 generations of systems. If
you had to let go of one and keep one, what would you do? What is your number one system?
Oh, my number one's PlayStation. I have 3 PS5s at the house. Like
shit, I'm about to get a second one. You got 3? Are you selling one?
Nope.
Hold on, let me show you this. 75-inch that just came in today. We about to hook it up. We got some stuff to do tonight.
So I would have gotten a 75-inch, but then I looked at my living room and I was like, if I put a 75-inch here, it's gonna be like you ever see Rocko's Modern Life when they have the giant movie theater? It's gonna be like that.
They're sitting like right there in the front 2 seats.
They're like, yeah, you're just like, I would have felt like Rocco in that. And I was like, nah, I got to go 65. 75 is way too big for the way we use our TV.
Here on One Time for the Fan, Chase, are you ever going to get a PlayStation?
In the near future. It's in the works. It's going to happen.
After the baby.
Yeah, after the baby.
Let me put it this way. I don't care what kind of phone you have, if you're iPhone or if you're Android. I don't care what kind of system you have. Pick what you like.
Yeah.
Go with what you like.
Yeah.
There's a lot dumber things we can be arguing about.
Yeah.
So I'd rather you argue about that than about some of this other stuff that people argue about.
No doubt.
But like in the grand scheme of things, like it doesn't matter what side you pick on those arguments. Because it's all about, does this thing work? I have an iPhone because it works.
That's right.
Like my phone works. That's all I care about. My wife was like, I want you to get an iPhone. I was like, all right. And I played with it. I'm like, cool. It's an iPhone. Like can I play my video games on my phone that I always like to play? Yeah. All right, cool. Like, can I play my little dots game where I turn the dots into boxes? Like, that's what I use my phone for. Can I go on Twitter? Yeah. Okay, cool. It's got all my basics. I'm good.
Scott, I have one more question here in the group chat. They want to know, do you have your own podcast?
I don't. I haven't had a podcast in probably 5 years. I just don't
Thinking
have the
about
time
it, or
I've thought about it, but at this point, no one's open. I get off at work on Wednesdays at 3. That's probably the best time for me to do it.
Anything pre-recorded you can put out there? Or
I mean, I could probably
love to sit there and just
then.
Okay.
But at a certain point, you just kind of lose
the
steam on it. For me, at least. I prefer just doing the guest spots.
Yeah. This is great, Falcons fans. Shout out to Kerry, last comment of the day, my Manchester City fan. Scott isn't judging you, but I am. I hate those Android emojis and green text team iPhone. Yeah, it says delivered. You don't know if it's delivered. The blue text, the green text. I'm texting people back like, did you get my text? Like, nah, bro, I didn't get it. It shows that it says delivered. How did you not get the text? So it's all over the place. Plus, we have a bowling event. We got to get on the lanes too together.
We do.
Remember
that. I'm down.
Chase, any final words? We go ahead and wrap up tonight. This is great. We're going to definitely have Scott back for the fans, but Bodie will be here next time. Maybe we can do another great debate with Country and Mike and John from Out of Your Falcons Mind. Alberto, because Scott, you got a lot going on. Maybe get Miles Garrett in here too as well. Hit Miles up, see if he can bring some popcorn and watch a movie. He's in Paramount, he's doing big things right now. So shout out to Miles the GOAT. Chase, before we get up out of here, man, what's up, man?
Yeah, man, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that tuned in tonight. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, whatever platform you was listening to us on. Give a shout out to Scott for coming in and giving us some of his knowledge tonight. Definitely 100% on all your knowledge. Shout out to the Falcons, man. I'm ready to get the season kicked off. Definitely ready just to see something Falcon on the football field. It's been a great show, man. I appreciate you, Jack. Appreciate you, even inviting me to be a part of this podcast back when you did. So, yeah, it's been great.
Scott, you can end the show with us. Any shout outs for you tonight?
To the Falcons for finally doing something in the offseason worth talking about. That's fun.
Love it.
First time since 2017 when they went out and got big old Poe.
Yep.
Falcon fans, this is great. We'll see y'all back Sunday. We're going to talk about some more players to watch for in the draft. If a trade back does happen, Scott, can you agree right now? Luke Van Ness would be a player to look for if you trade back. Skronsky's a player. Miles Murphy is another player to look for. Maybe even throw a wide receiver in there, the kid from Ohio State, or Johnston, or you're not going to throw those two in there. The trade back happens, it's too far back, or that's a hell of a reach right there. You're going damn near back to you don't want to do that, right, Scott? Scott's like, no.
I'll put it this way. This class is a lot like the Calvin Ridley class when it comes to wide receivers. if there's a guy there at like 18, maybe, but for the most part, nah.
What's the farthest you see the trade back?
16 Commanders. Say Will Levis is there. Commanders want to give you their first next year, their second this year, their first this year. You make that trade.
You do it. Yeah.
Grab that extra first. You grab that extra second for this year. You trade back to 16. Bunch of guys going to be there at 16 that you can throw right in. You might still get Nolan Smith at 16 even. And if you trade back to 16 and draft Nolan Smith, and then you got those 2 seconds, and then you trade those 2 seconds up towards the end of the first and grab, I don't know, Jahmyr Gibbs or someone along those lines.
A+.
No one's going to hate that at all.
Falcon fans, he turned a shout out into some more facts for y'all. So let y'all know that we could actually be here talking for another 30, 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. One time for the fan, we'll be back Sunday. Chase, to Bodie 3000, who was watching, and he's coaching the basketball team now, Chase. So we gotta get on him Sunday. And it's his birthday Sunday. So we got to get on him on Sunday. Scott, this is great, man. So thank you for showing up today, taking the time out of your schedule to come talking Falcons football with us. Fans are excited. We're excited. I think everybody's ready to get to week 1 right after the draft. So we'll see you back shortly. And, man, rise up, brother.
Rise up.
Peace out.
Yeah, that's my signature. I'm not gonna end it.